Okay, we're just about there, just waiting for the live stream to load. Hey N, how's it going? Thanks for showing up. Thanks for coming. Just going to give everyone a chance to get through the startup. And I think we're pretty good to go. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to be going over tonight. There is a new Microsoft Surface around, the Surface Go 2, and it's exciting to see this because one of the major problems with the original Surface Go was the fact that it was severely underpowered. It had a great screen, great build, great design really, and I actually used a Surface Go for several months as my primary device. And it worked, but I couldn't use it fully because the processor was so slow. So I just barely got this today. I had just enough time to let Windows updates run and let everything load up, and it is good to go. This here is the Surface Go 2 with larger screen, and I have brought a original Surface Go. This is the 128 gigabyte version, and this is the 128 gigabyte version. They both have NVMe drives, so it'll be interesting to compare the two. But this is the 128 version with 8 gigabytes of RAM, and it is the more powerful one with the Core M. That is the Intel 8100Y. And anyways, we'll get into some of that in a minute here. But I just want to talk about what we'll be covering. Normally I do a video on a new Surface device, and I cover the throttling characteristics, because a lot of times you have peak performance and then over time it slows down. Now the Surface Go, you really didn't have that. It's a 5-watt device, and it peaked at 1.7 gigahertz, and so it just never surpassed a certain barrier. It's just running at such a low level anyways. Now this new one, I have no idea. It might be the exact same way, but it does peak at double the processor speed. It goes up to 3.4 gigahertz boost rate on the Surface Go 2, which is a major performance improvement. In fact, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but in just installing Windows updates, you guys know how long that can take with a new device. And in fact, I think my original Surface Mini, it wasn't called the Mini, just the original Surface 3, took basically overnight to finish Windows updates. And this machine did it in about 45 minutes to an hour with new firmware updates and all kinds of things. The whole Windows version updated, actually. So anyways, this is my first live stream. I go long. If you've watched my videos, I go long form. So hopefully that's your deal. I'll try to cover the meat of the throttling and the side-by-side comparisons with the Surface Go, and I think that'll be useful because you'll be able to see the performance side-by-side and see how much better the Go 2 is compared to the Go 1, in addition to how they perform in different benchmarks together. So if you have any questions as we're going along, drop them in the chat. I'll try to keep an eye on it as much as I can. I've got kind of a 2-camera system set up for this, where we will be looking at the devices over there as I run benchmarks, and I'll be kind of explaining things over here as needed as well. So let's get started. First of all, a direct overview of the Surface Go 2, and I'm going to show you the overview of the outside of the device, and I'm going to do it while holding the original Surface Go right next to it, because you'll be able to see that they are absolutely physically the same device, which is great if you've already invested in some sort of case for this. The only difference you will have is on the front here. And the new Surface Go 2, we'll get to the screen in a minute, but it has the new studio mic. So it has 2 microphones, and it's able to utilize having 2 microphones to really get good noise canceling on the recording device. And also, I have heard really great things about this camera on the Surface Go 2 versus the Surface Go. So we'll take a look at that as well. But let's go ahead. I want to show you, you have a 10-inch screen on the Surface Go and a 10.5-inch on the Go 2. So let me just log into these devices and I'll let you see them side by side as a comparison. See if I can juggle that. Okay, so what stands out, look at the bezels there. The Go 2 definitely hits the edge a lot closer, and let me back it out so you can get a feel for how much bigger that screen is side by side. It's subtle, you probably wouldn't be able to notice unless they were side by side, but it actually is quite a bit bigger. But the Go does have, see all that finger space on the edge? It's a little easier. Over here you get, oh, I just registered because I don't have as big a bezel. But I do prefer the 10.5-inch size. But it's not just the size that's different. The Surface Go 2 actually has a 1920 by 1280 screen, where the original Go had an 1800 by 1200 screen. So you get to pick up a few more pixels on the Go 2, which is great. One more thing, here's a scale. The original Go weighs rather, 506 grams, where the new Surface Go 2 weighs 536 grams. So that's a small difference, just a little bit heavier there. But let's go ahead and get to the software and take a look at some benchmarks. So let me get to my split screen view and let me get this hooked up. I know that's out of focus, but give me a second and I'll get a square here. So in order to be able to tell these apart easily in case people join and get confused, I'm going to drop this little sticky note on here. So the Go, hopefully that sticks. Got the Go 2 and the Go original right there, so we can tell them apart. Now, I don't have the new type cover, unfortunately. I would test that out. Let me get us in focus here. Okay. All right. Okay, so I have an NVMe drive here, and I'm going to, the first test is copying over all the benchmark software, because just the copy rate is going to be a test of the performance of this device. Sorry guys if that's taking a minute. All right, I'm gonna get my stopwatch out. And this portable NVMe drive has my benchmark files, and I'm just gonna copy them and paste them. And I'm gonna do it on a timer. The Surface Go took 20 seconds flat. Now remember, the Surface Go over here that I had as a comparison is here. Let me turn the brightness down so we can see better. Oh, that's a little better. Okay, the Surface Go did it in 20 seconds flat, and let's see what the Surface Go 2 does. Okay, that's not a good start, guys. That was 24 seconds where the Go took 20 seconds. So we'll have to do, I've got some benchmarks we're going to run on the NVMe drive. But let's take a look. I'm curious now. Let's take a look at the drive itself and see which drive we have in here. See if it's the same. Could be the exact same, could be different. We've got a HFB 1M on the Go 2, and we have a Toshiba on the original Go. Now I don't know personally what HFB is, but they are different, so we'll take a closer look at that. But another thing that I want to do is let's start with the benchmark software. And one thing I'm going to do is a lot of the programs I use require these Visual C runtimes, and I'm going to have to install all of those at once and also extract them. Let's see if I can zoom out so we can see both at the same time. Let me get focus better. Okay, we'll move back to a better view in just a second, but we're going to extract these and see which one does it quicker. Okay, so the Go 2 definitely is much faster, and that could be partly the processor and partly the drive. But we're also going to run this installation, and you'll just watch side by side. The Go 2 peaks at 3.4 gigahertz, where this is stuck at 1.7. Look how much quicker this thing's moving. So see, this is the major reason why I couldn't keep using the Go as my primary device. Is, I mean, look at this thing. It's just sitting here. You can't even tell it's doing anything. It's still stuck on runtime package 2008, and this thing's already done. Done. So when I tried to use 3D modeling tools and things like that, it didn't work because it was just too slow. So this is thinking, but let's go ahead and move to some more. Let's see. Okay, we're going to go to Throttle Stop. And Throttle Stop is good because it lets us see how many watts the device is using. It will also let us see whether we can undervolt the device. Okay, so I'm going to move this back just on this one. We'll let Surface Go finish up doing what it's doing. Okay, so here's Throttle Stop, and hopefully that you can see that clear. It looks like it's pretty good picking up. So right here, the package power, that's what we're concerned with, is the package power, because that's how hot the machine's going to get. That's how much performance it's pushing. The watts directly translate into how many calculations the processor is performing combined with its IPC, or instructions per clock. So different CPUs won't do the same amount of work per watt necessarily. Obviously, efficiency is key. So the Surface Go with the Pentium Gold may take quite a bit longer. Okay, so there is a benchmark on here that lets us kind of ramp up the machine. So let's go ahead, let's do 256 million with 4 threads and see how many watts this thing starts pulling. The other thing you'll want to look at, and let me make sure that that's in really nicely for you, is the megahertz right here. So right now it's idling between 867 and 1000 megahertz, but it should actually peak pretty high. Oh, there it goes, 3.2. It's peaking right there. I don't know what it's doing in the background, but we're going to go ahead and put a load on the system, and it will probably be more visually appealing if I bring up some processor graphs as well, so you can keep an eye on it. There we go, and let's start. Oh, check it out. 8 watts. So it's definitely not limited to 5 watts starting off the bat, and it's maintaining about 2.3. Oh, it just bumped down. Oh, there it goes. There it goes. It's throttled itself down to 3.5 watts pretty quickly there. That's very interesting to see. Let me get Throttle Stop running on the Surface Go, and we can kind of do a comparison. I'm going to let this run. It's at 25%. It's creeping back up to 4 watts. So that kind of looks like what their status quo will be on the Surface Go 2. They're allowing a short burst of 8 watts, but then it immediately, after, what was that, 10 seconds. You can see here on the graph. Let me use the mouse. You see this graph? It was loaded, and then it dropped down. It got. I don't think it was thermally limited, but it definitely wasn't thermally limited, but it was power limited, and it came back down at that point. But just for fun, we're going to look at this on the original Surface Go and see what it is going to do for us. Just because I don't know if I think it just caps basically. So let's go 256 and start. Okay, so it just dead on is stuck at basically 4 watts. And the Go 2 in the long term is stuck at 4 watts as well. But there's also efficiency. So we'll get a score back on each of these benchmarks, and we'll be able to tell how fast they were able to complete the task in. So we're at 90%. So I think this calculation is basically just, I believe it's just calculating pi is what it's doing. So 100, it got 158.18. And we'll let it cool off and go back over to the Go, the original Go. And unfortunately, it's a lot slower, so we may be here for a minute. But that was one of the things that I wanted to understand. Let me zoom out a little bit and we can talk while it's finishing up that benchmark. Fix my zoom. If I set it to auto zoom, it just is all over the place. So I find it better just to manually adjust that zoom. So sorry for the shakiness on that. But I guess if we pull it back to here, that also gives you a feel for the screen size of the Surface Go 2 versus the Surface Go. Take a look, for example, where the type cover hits on the Surface Go 2 versus the original Go. You still have plenty of black border on the original Go, but the screen's so much bigger, it's right up to the edge of the keyboard on this device. So that is definitely a major difference between the two. Now this will be a very interesting comparison because even though they both ultimately pull 4 watts, this one does a lot of bursty behavior that lets you really get more done quickly, because especially when you're running like normal programs and not just like video encoding or gaming or something like that, you have what's called a burst behavior. So if it lets it take those 8 watts and lets it boost the CPU up at 3.4, you're really going to get a lot quicker behavior because it's going to copy a file, like extract something, pull something down, process a little bit of animation, and it really thrives on that punchy behavior, where this is just stuck at the 1.7 and just kind of mulls through things. It eventually gets there. Anyways, the Surface Go, and keep in mind this is not the only basis of performance, but the original Go, 167 seconds, and this took 158 seconds. So now what I want to look at, it seems like the performance should be a little bit better than that, but when you're stuck at 4 watts, I guess that's what happens. But the burst behavior is really good. The low behavior doesn't look super good between the two. Whoops. Let's put that back up. Okay, so I want to try this with one thread. Whoops, stop. I want to try this with one thread because I want to see how high a single thread will go to and how long it takes to drop down. So it's idling. I'll kind of let it recharge from being stuck there. And we'll leave that there. No, we'll go 64 million. It'll finish a little quicker if we do it this way. So let's go ahead and start it. And 8 watts, 3.3-ish gigahertz. Still keeping the 8 watts. And now down to 4. So we got boost for just a few seconds, 5 or 6 seconds. Interesting. And now my only other wondering, and I doubt that this is the case, but I do have my magic fan here that I could point at the back really quick and see if it sustains the load. Let's let this benchmark finish, and then I'll plug it in the back and see what type of wattage we're seeing. So give me just a second. All right, so I'm pointing the fan at the back of this. I really don't think it's going to do anything for us. Let's go ahead and keep that load up. So yeah, I really don't think this thing is thermally throttled. It's just throttled by power limits. Yep, we could probably point the fan at this all day long and it's not going to make a single difference. And you know, that's all. I mean, this is not a bad thing. This is the beauty of having a fanless low power device. It's just not going to get too warm and it's not being slow because it's too hot, or the chassis is too hot. It's being, you know, slow because it's designed for a form factor that doesn't need a fan, and you're not going to over exceed that limit in normal usage, where with even the Surface Pro 7 it really has to pull itself back because it's running hotter than the chassis can handle. So I'm going to get rid of the fan because this is a little bit pointless. So takeaways on this. When we discuss battery life, the Surface Go versus the Go 2, you're going to see very similar battery life between these two devices because in the long run, they both operate at 4 watts. So basically, you know, you take your 4 watts, take your watt hours of the battery and divide it by 4. I think it's how many watt hours is the battery? Does someone know there in the chat? I'm spacing. I believe it was 26. Yeah, so 6.5 hours. But that's, I mean, the package power isn't the full picture. You do have the screen as well. So you really do need, you know, to look at further battery testing to actually know for sure what's going on there. All right. Let's go ahead and move into some other benchmarks. But let's look at the actual processor itself. Sorry, I'm out of focus. Let me get. I really wish I had something better. I would have just installed. Well, I'm running OBS on another computer, and normally you can run OBS in screen cap, but I don't want the screen cap to mess up the results. So anyways, let's take a look at CPU-Z and see what's under the hood here. And I'm going to do the same thing on the Surface Go. We'll do a few comparisons. Okay, so these are both, it says max TDP 5 watts, but we just saw that it's not maxed at 5 watts. The manufacturer can code different things into their BIOS on how they want it to operate. So while this Amber Lake Y chip is rated for 5 watts, you can really make it run it at whatever you want. What's funny is over here, the max TDP of this Kaby Lake Intel Gold chip, it actually says 6 watts, when really we never saw it go over 4. So that's kind of interesting. So anyways, back to the Go 2. Both the Pentium and the M3 chip are 14 nanometer. And let's go ahead and look at the cache. Both of them have a 32, 256, but then the M3 has a 4 megabyte L3 cache, where the original Go only had a 2 megabyte cache. Also, I was hopeful that maybe the memory would be DDR4, or a low power DDR4 as well, but that was not the case. It's DDR3, the exact same as the Surface Go. And the timings as well are exactly, well, pretty close to exactly the same in terms of the cast latency. So it looks like almost essentially the exact same RAM. Let's see if we can get some details on it. No, it's locked down. Okay. So let's go ahead and close this down. I'm just reading a post. Great fan. Yeah, so N bought 2 of those fans. That fan's pretty infamous at this point. In fact, I see a lot of YouTube videos that utilize the fan trick, and they say, oh, I saw this guy and he used a fan. I'm just like, that was me. At least link me or something, you know. Anyways, let's turn on Fraps. And here's something I really wanted to try. I want to load up Minecraft on both of these and see what happens. Because Minecraft has 2 things. A, we'll get a feel for how improved the graphics are, even though they're the exact same graphics. This has like 50 more megahertz. But frame rate's not just the GPU, it's also how fast the CPU can keep that GPU loaded. So let's go ahead and install Fraps. Fraps is a piece of software that shows you the frame rate. All right. And let me just make sure it's actually turned on. Fraps. Okay. And I'm just doing the same thing on the go. Get some focus here for you. Okay, let's run Minecraft. One 1.15.2. Ooh, we've got a race on our hands here. I started the go-to a little late, by the way, but it didn't matter. It's already loaded. So guys, I wish that focus was just a little bit better, but I'm working with what I got. Oh, dang. I gotta load up Fraps. Let's go, let's go. There we go. Okay, so we're getting 60 frames a second. Obviously, we're in window mode, and it's, you know, just sitting at the title screen. But what I'm going to do is go into full screen. And I lost my Fraps. Great. Let's see if there's an option for frame rate on here. I'm going to turn off VSync. And I guess I'm going to have to go out of full screen mode on this. I have to use windowed. And then we're going to have to make sure they're the exact same resolution because one of these has a different resolution than the other. So let's go ahead and choose, let's do 1280 by 1024. And 60. It really doesn't want to give me that fraps. That's interesting. Okay. Now you guys see why benchmarking does not make for great live streaming all the time. Okay, so, oh, here's an idea. Don't worry, guys. I've got this figured out. I'm going to set the resolution to 1600 by 900 on both of these devices, and that should give us apples to apples. We don't want to mess this up. Oh, thanks, and that's actually a great point. You can just hit F2 or F3. You're right. I've done that before. Thanks for that. I'm just going to go like this. Okay. So now we're playing on the same page with these. All right, let's go to single player. And what's funny is the frame rate seems to be capped at 60, but I did turn off VSync. Let me just verify that really quick. Yeah, VSync's off. Max frame rate's 120. So maybe that's just something it does at the title. But now we can do a comparison. So what I'm going to do, but this is why Minecraft is good for this, is we can drop a seed in when we create a new world. And you can see my daughter's been playing quite a bit on hers. Create new world, survival, and we're going to go more world options. And I'm going to actually give it a seed. And we're going to say A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. And done. And we're going to see how quickly it creates the new world. As expected, the go-to is leading the pack. But by how much? Let's find out. You guys see that okay? turn up the brightness, maybe that will help. I'm actually surprised how close these two are. So this is at 100%, while that was at 83. Joining world. So it definitely loaded him first. And we've got a really fun, like, 5 frame per second going on. Now, if this was a video about tuning up Minecraft, we could we could definitely make the frame rate go better, but I'm gonna not do that for a second. The question is, can I find the same place in the world? Sometimes it's easy to find it. Definitely not what you want to be doing when you're live streaming, I guess. Okay, so now that it's kind of caught up, look at the frame rate now. It's gotten a lot better. So we must be on the other side of the world. Dang, I wish I used to know a seed that put me right on the side of a lake, and it was really easy to find on the same seed where you're supposed to be. But let's do the easy thing. Let's climb to the top of something and look at the sky. And see where we're peaking. So the I gotta say, the original Surface Go is creaming it right now. 115. Now, I don't know if that can actually be right. I might need to. Oh look, the clouds look the same. So that's a very interesting result, and I'm not sure what's going on here because the Go 2 is losing out. Let's look at the ground, see if it's any different. So, very interesting. It may be that the processor is kind of using up more of the TDP. I don't know what to make of that. But also, it looks like there's something different going on here. See how the sizes are different? Okay. Well, we know it loaded the world quicker, but I'm not going to waste time because I feel like this benchmark is flawed, or it's not comparing like it should. So let's move on. Let's go back to stock. Stock resolutions. And then we'll take a look at the camera. Okay, so this should give us both an idea of how the screens look and their camera capabilities. And we're getting pink haze just because of the sticker, so I'll move the sticker here for you. Let me adjust my camera. I'm probably just going to have to hold this. Let's see. Okay, so that camera app is slightly different. I wonder if there's an update to it in the App Store. I think that's probably the case. But either way, it's still showing the video feed. So one thing I will say, the consistency of the brightness between these two screens is very close. If I had to guess, I would say that the Go 2 is slightly brighter, but this particular panel does seem to be a bit, they're both on full brightness, they're really close. This has a little, the original Go has a little cooler color, where the Go 2 is a little bit more warm, and some of that's just variation in panel itself. But let's go back to the camera app. The camera quality, and let me see if I can focus that. It's like probably the worst way to test it, but it's better than nothing. This is the Go 2, and you can see the features of my face, the scruff on my beard. It's actually very visible on this camera. And over here on the original Go, details are quite a bit harder to make out. It's not too bad, but the Go 2 is very quickly, apparently, yeah, I mean, it's very clear to tell that this is a much better camera on the Go 2. So that's an interesting result there. So let's get to the bottom of the graphics, because I'm a little concerned that the Go is beating the Go 2 in Minecraft. But like I say, I think that test is probably flawed. I think I may have set the resolution strangely. So let's go ahead and we're going to install, let's install a benchmark that actually does something. And I'll try to emphasize the Go 2. Okay. All right, so we're going to run Heaven benchmark. And part of the test is seeing which one installs it quicker. And so far we've seen the Go 2 is plenty quick and faster than the original Go at installing. So I could pop that up way quicker, and yes. And we're going to click next at the same time, and we're going to accept. And install. Boom. So that wasn't too bad. But let's go ahead and run Heaven. Oh boy. Give me just a second. The Go 2 is still trying to install these runtime packages. Oh my gosh. I think it's 2013. No, that one's installed. This one. All right, let's see if that worked. Nope. 2010, please. Hey, Josher. Good to see you. Josher's also, you guys should check out his channel. He does a lot of surface benchmarks, and it's great to see you in here. Okay, guys, I'm really hoping that we can get these runtimes installed. If this doesn't work, I'm just going to have to download the DLL directly and drop it in the folder, but that has to have fixed it. We got all the distributables. Now, let's go. No. Okay, sorry guys. I probably just need to reboot the computer. Let's paste it. Okay. Come on. Oh my gosh. All right, we're rebooting. Sorry about this, guys. So I guess we'll get this going. We're gonna go ahead and not do it full screen because we want to be able to set the resolution. Let's go ahead. I mean, this is a Surface Go. Let's go 720p on this thing. And I really want to be able to show you these side by side. So cross your fingers that it's going to work. So some other notes on the Surface Go 2 that as I've been using it. The AC adapter is exactly the same as the Go, same specifications. But I was also able to test it with a USB-C charger, and the Go 2 can charge 40 plus watts. And it only comes with a 24 watt adapter, but you can charge it quicker than 24 watts if you use a USB-C charger that's a little bit stronger. Okay. Now I'm worried that we don't have the right DLL, so I'm going to delete it. Let's try that. Come on. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Heaven's not going to work for us. Let's try Valley. That is disappointing. Sorry, guys. Let me focus better. And turn the brightness down so you guys can see better. See, I wanted it to show things installing as part of the benchmarking, but I now realize that that's a bad idea because you run into issues like this. Also, one thing you're going to want to do if you get a go-to is immediately turn on S mode, because you can't run, you can run Windows Store apps, but we all know that the Windows Store is the last place that you'd want to get your applications from. Well, not in all cases, but you guys know what I mean. Like, no one's joining the Windows ecosystem or the Windows App Store. So if you want to be able to run anything, like even this benchmark, even basic programs like CPU-Z, pretty much any software that's not Microsoft or that you're used to using that is the benefit to actually running a Windows machine, you're going to want to get out of S mode to be able to run it. Okay, so the go-to installing applications we know is quite a bit quicker. So let's run that. Oh my gosh, guys. MSVCP, huh? How disappointing. Okay, I'm going to run the benchmark and we'll get a score. Okay, we're not doing full screen, 720p. And while that runs, I'll try to get the other machine fixed up. So I saw your message. Yeah, if I can get this this working, I will reboot both of the machines. Okay, guys, good news. It's working. Okay, so I'm going to take... I'm going to take N's advice and reboot both machines when I run the Heaven benchmark side by side. So we all know that these are not gaming machines per se, even though they can game, and if you turn down the settings, you're going to get a pretty okay result. Okay, 9.3 average, 4.6 minimum, 15.9, but it doesn't matter. We're rebooting, and we're going to play apples to apples on this. Restart. So this will be a good test of which one can restart faster. So I will say, you can tell that this screen's a bit sharper. Not that you guys can on my crappy camera. Sorry about that, guys. But definitely the go-to is quite a bit sharper. It looks good. Okay, we're gonna log in. So they both reboot equally fast. The Windows Hello works really fast on the Go 2. I've heard people say it's quicker than the original Go. I felt like the Go was pretty quick, but I trust Daniel Rubino if he says it's quicker. We're going to go to Windows Heaven. And it makes sense because this literally has the studio microphone array and the better camera that's in the Surface Book 3. So that's actually the exact same thing you'd get in, I believe, a Surface Pro 7 or Surface Book 3. Okay, so let's do basic preset. No, let's not. Let's do custom. And we're doing 720p. Let's disable anti-aliasing. Quality, let's drop to low so it's a little more fun to watch. And guys, this is the moment of truth, because while the CPU is much quicker on the Go 2, it uses the same graphics processor, and I wonder if they've adjusted the thermals so much to accommodate the faster CPU that they've left less for the GPU. So anyways, let's run these at the same time and see what happens. So the Go 2 definitely loads quicker. We already knew that though. I feel like it's going to be all tired out on this side. Okay. Don't worry, I'll adjust the camera a second. We're going to hit benchmark at the same time. Ready, set, go. Something's wrong here. This has an average of 20, and this is showing 32. Let's check the power configuration settings. That's why. I'm an idiot, guys. Let's restart. One's on high performance and the other one isn't. Okay. They are both now on high performance. Now we got to retest the throttling. Gosh dang. So Joshua, I don't know if you caught the beginning of this, but we found that that the Go 2 will boost to 8 watts originally before falling down to 4 watts, where the Go just kind of hung out at 4 watts package power. Okay, guys, I gotta push the button at the same time. Okay. Here we go. And that looks better. But you know what? I hate to say it. The Surface Go is ahead. So it is kind of closing the gap, but that's a pretty interesting result. So yeah, Surface Go 20.2, the original Go 25.6 so far. Okay, not that I want to skew the results, but as soon as it's done benchmarking, I'm going to pull up Throttle Stop and see what the package power looks like between the two while we're doing this benchmark. Because it was... they both evened out to 4 in the end where the Go 2 was bursty, so I'm kind of not sure what's going on here. If anyone has any ideas in the comments. But my guess is maybe there's just that much more overhead with a M3 device that it's, when you're using graphically based program, it actually slows it down. But I mean, this is just one benchmark. But maybe those Minecraft results we saw were accurate. Okay, so while we're waiting for this to finish up, let's do this. I'm going to drop in my thermal camera and I'll record what the back of these machines look like. Now, I don't expect that they'll be any different if they're pulling the same amount of watts, but especially since the chassis is like exactly the same. So Surface Go, 111 degrees on the front. The Surface Go 2, 111 degrees on the front. Let's look at the back here. And I'm just going to record Surface Go 2, Surface Go 1. And I'm just going to have to play back the video to see what that looks like. But I will show you as well. Okay. You can see that. Okay, so here's the Surface Go. 112, 111. Surface Go 2, 111, 110. Then on the back side, the Go 2, actually cooler on the back, so that was 107, and the original Go 111. I didn't hold it there very long, but that's what we get. Okay, so we got our benchmark results in. The Go 2 519, the original Go 647. So while that's still running, I'm going to open up Throttle Stop and let's see if we get any hints about what is going on with this thing. So the other question is can this thing undervolt? So the Surface Pro 7, and I've been meaning to make a video on this, they have locked down undervolting on the latest firmwares, which is kind of too bad that we have Plundervolt, and Plundervolt is a vulnerability that takes advantage of a CPU that's undervolted too far, that's unstable, and makes it what? Okay. Check it out, guys. The Go 2 is popping around between 3, I've seen as low as 3.6 and as high as 4.1. 3.6 to 4.2, 3.5 to 4.2. Look at the original Go. 3.9 to 5.5. That's what's going on. And also you can see the Surface Go is getting much hotter. It's about 70 degrees, even though the chassis temp is not any different. Just kind of different technologies in the chip, I guess. But that, okay. So, all right, here's what we're gonna try now. Let's try to tweak this thing. It's probably not gonna work, but let's give it a shot. We're going to click the TPL button in Throttle Stop, and that's going to tell us how it's tuned. And it actually has a short boost of 8 and a long boost of 18, but we already know it's throttling way past 8, so I don't think this is going to do anything. But let's try to push 12 and 20 on this thing. Apply. Still stuck at 4.3. Let's just go for the money. No, of course not. It's a Microsoft device. So Microsoft tends to gauge the TDP available by the temperature of the chassis. Let's see if cooling this thing off does anything. I already tried it once. It didn't work. I think they've just locked it down for battery life purposes. They know that, hey, this is not our performance device, and they've tuned it down lower than the Surface Go. So that makes things really hard to benchmark, because yeah, the fan's doing nothing. So guys, I think that's actually a really interesting discovery. If you are a person who is interested in gaming, the Go 2 is actually worse than the original Go was for gaming, because on burst rates on applications, it is much better. The CPU is very much stronger than this one, but there's not enough TDP left over for the GPU, which means you end up with a performance difference in 3D applications of, what is that? Okay, I gotta, so, come on. $647 over $519, 24% quicker, at least in heaven. But let's not leave it there. Let's run some more benchmarks, because okay, we need something here. But this is definitely not good news for those of you who like mini gaming on on the Surface Go, because it's not showing up for us. Okay, let's do, what else do I have? I guess let's run a Geekbench score and compare them to Daniel Rubino's score, and just make sure there's not something wrong with my Go 2, because that seems a little suspect. Okay, we're going to run Geekbench, and I'm going to pull up Daniel Rubino's review at Windows Central. Shout out to Daniel. I don't agree with everything he says, and we disagree on certain things at times, but I really think he does an excellent job and actually looks at the technical aspects versus some of the reviewers out there. Okay, Geekbench 5, Surface Go 2. I'm just gonna make sure that my numbers match his, because this seems slow, unfortunately. Okay, we're just gonna run the CPU benchmark. Okay, so here's some of the Windows Central review. We should see an 847 single core, 1609 multi-core, and I think his GPU, he used Geekbench 4, of course. So I guess we'll see. But we can't compare the Geekbench 5 score. So here's the deal, and let's, while that's running, here's the deal. Based on our performance that we've seen with the Surface Go 2, there's a strong case for, there still is the Pentium Gold of the Surface Go 2 that's not the M3 chip. So there's a case to be made that if you want to do, miniature sized gaming, you might want the Surface Go 2 with the Pentium Gold, which is crazy because that's a $399 device. So that makes that, maybe that explains why Microsoft still made that an option, but Maybe, probably not. Probably not. But because I feel like the main draws of the Go 2 are the larger screen size and the punchier performance. But oh man, that's a hard. You really have to make a choice there, because I did the Pentium Gold. While it was fine, it was slow, and you've got a 3.4 boost speed on the Go 2, which makes it really nice when you're just popping around in Windows and browsing. Oh, we got to do a browser test side by side, because the Go 2 so much punchier. Like sometimes on the original Go, while you're scrolling, you'll find that it's like, hey, come on, let's load it up. But I haven't felt any slowdowns on the Go 2. So it's too bad that the 3D performance has been nerfed, apparently. Okay, Logan says, looking at Surface Go 2 base for a sidekick at work. I'm in IT and often do Wi-Fi walkthroughs that require extensive notes. Looking for a tab I can use OneNote and Outlook and browse the internet on. Will the Surface Go 2 base be okay, or should I spring for the M3 processor? So, I would say if you really are just doing notes on the device, you're going to be fine with the base model. That Pentium Gold, it does fine for that. I mentioned earlier, I used the Surface Go I've always used Surface Pros a lot, but I decided this mini Surface Go is awesome, and I primarily used it at work for note taking in meetings, and I switched to a Surface Go for about 6 months, and it was just fine. Okay. My Surface Go 2, guys, is not performing. Let's switch back. So let me finish up with you, Logan. I really think that you'd be okay with the base model if you're doing it for note taking and you're syncing to the cloud with OneNote. There's no reason to splurge and step up if you're not running additional applications. If you're just taking notes, checking emails. If you are using Outlook might be a little slow to load things up, but that's the only place I could see it being an issue. So you'd be okay with the base model. One thing to note, and I've been meaning to mention this, people look at the consumer side and they see, hey, I got to pay $629 to get into that M3 processor. But that's not the case. If you go to the business side, you actually can order a business Surface Go 2, and there's a $499 version. Now, it does not have the NVMe, and it doesn't have the 8 gigabytes of RAM, but you can get that bigger screen and the M3 processor for $499, which for some people might make sense. But, Josher, you're going to have to, do you have yours? You've got yours. Josher, run Geekbench 5. Because according to Daniel Rubino, I should be getting an 847 and a multi-core of 1609. But I'm getting a 638 and an 1120. So I don't know if that's the latest firmware. There was a new firmware that came out just in the last day or two. I don't know if that nerfed things. So, Josher, I don't know if you're still there. If you can run a Surface Go 2 benchmark, Josher, drop that in the chat, and we'll actually wait to compare your notes there, and we can take a look and see if something's going on with it. Because so far, things are not looking good for my performance compared to the Windows Central review. So Josher confirmed he's gonna run a benchmark for us and see what he gets. But one more thing I wanted to test, and I think it's something we can actually test here, is the Wi-Fi performance, because the Surface Go 2. And Josher, when you run that benchmark, let us know if you've installed the latest firmware or not. because I am underperforming. I wonder if Microsoft nerfed it after the reviewers had a chance to play with it, so they could then, I don't know. Anyways. Wouldn't that be awful if that's what they were doing? Okay, let's go to the C drive. And of course, Microsoft, next time you launch a Surface device, consider sending it to me, because I've been reviewing your devices since the Surface Pro 3, and I probably sold thousands of Surface devices for you, so hook me up. So let's go. Oh, sorry guys, I'm like on the wrong view. You're like, oh great, we love looking at you sit in the chair. Okay, I'm gonna run iPerf. And so this has Wi-Fi 6. And not that my router's Wi-Fi 6, but I have Google Wi-Fi. And so we've got 80 megabits a second. Now we're going to switch over to the Go and see how that compares. Oh, snap. Look at that, guys. So we're on the same Wi-Fi network, and the Go 2 gets 80 plus megabits a second throughput, while the Surface Go is only getting 24 megabits of throughput. So much better Wi-Fi in the Pro 2. So that's pretty exciting. Let's go ahead and run the Geekbench compute score. But I need Geekbench 4 for that. Geekbench 4. I wonder why Daniel didn't use the Geekbench 5 compute test. Also, let's close Heaven down. Run it. Okay, run the compute benchmark. Okay, Josher's gonna run the same benchmark that I did for Geekbench 5, and he's gonna share his results with us, because it's possible that I have a nerfed Go 2 for some reason, but my guess is it's that firmware update, because that came out today or yesterday, and Microsoft, maybe they tweak something because they want a better battery life. And they don't expect people to be gaming on this thing, even though lots of us do. So we'll see how it goes. So Daniel Rubino said his Surface Go 2 got a 20,488. And look, we only got a 13,953. What's up with that? I'm not sure what to make of that. So I'm hoping Joshua gets back to us. I know he is. He will. Joshua's a good guy. So, Go 2, great screen, an improvement, more resolution, faster Wi-Fi, way better camera, way better microphones. I've tested the studio mics on the Pro 7, and it works pretty well. I did a whole video, and I'd never really used laptop microphones in a video before. And when I did that, I was like, oh, it sounds okay. But then I tried making a video using the microphone on a different laptop, and it sounded horrendous. So the studio microphone array is actually pretty good. Oh, I said I was going to do a browsing test. So let's go over here. Let me get this set up better. Sorry that the camera's so bad, guys. I'm going to adjust my focus. Okay, so let's use the same browser. And let's go to YouTube. Okay, look how long this takes to load on the original Surface Go. Okay, finally loaded in. And let's try a little scroll test. See how these are still gray and loading in? Whoops, we don't want that. So that's the other thing. I literally clicked go back and it didn't register on the Go 2. Go back. And that's the kind of thing you run into on the Go, is like you're trying to do some basic things and it just like ends up being so slow. Look, this is all gray. These are filled in almost immediately. Now let's find the exact same video and click on it. Why is it so easy to stay thin in Japan? Boom! The Go 2 is there. And this is still loading. So, anyways, don't want to. And look, I hit back on this machine. There it goes. That's the kind of thing you run into, and why the M3 is so much better. And okay, Joshua's back. 759 single. Let's pull up. Okay, I'm pulling up the scores that he had. So 847 and 1600. Joshua only got 759 and 1578. So he got a lot closer than I did. Joshua, how do you feel about running a heaven benchmark and seeing what your score ends up being? Let me reboot my machine and rerun my Geekbench score. Because maybe I've got a lemon, guys. That's not fun. Yeah, those results seem a little suspect. I'm not sure why that would be the case. So I gotta get from behind the camera. Okay, so I won't keep everyone too much longer, but I'm gonna rerun my Geekbench score and see what I get. I'm gonna double check my power settings. I'm on best performance. And we'll run that CPU benchmark again. Oh, Joshua, you need Geekbench 4 for a compute score to compare to Windows Central. So see if you can get Geekbench 4 run a compute, because my compute was 13,000 where Daniel Rubino's was 19,500. Or 19,488. So quite a bit quicker than mine. All right, we're getting close. I don't know if there's anything else I can say about these things. Oh, let's test the drive. So we'll use Crystal Disk Mark, but I'll do that after that benchmark is done. So for those of you coming in late to the game, just know that the Go that I'm comparing it to is the 128 gigabyte NVMe drive, which is pretty speedy. You can see there it's read 1,345, which is pretty good. But we'll let that benchmark run over there while our Geekbench 5 runs again to see if something's off. For those of you who are interested in the gaming capabilities, hey Joshua, do you still have a regular Surface Go? If you do, you should run a benchmark comparison of a Go versus a Go 2 in some sort of game that you could benchmark. I did Minecraft in Heaven and Valley, and the original Go was beating it out, but maybe something's not quite right with mine. So yeah, once again, my multi-core score is only 1205. And the single core 668. But let's look at the disk. Crystal disk mark. So we've got the Go 2 on the left and the Surface Go on the right. Ooh. Okay, so better read. And a better read at that level as well. Yeah, so Joshua, I'll be really interested to see how your Go 2 compares to your regular Go. Because I'm seeing, for some reason, my Go 2 is 20% nerfed, apparently. I don't know if that's just how it is, but Geekbench 4 compute 16,805. So that also is not as good as Rubino's score and Windows Central. So really interesting that we'd see. I mean, that's a huge amount of variation in a device there. So all right, this drive's still quicker. And just so everyone knows, both my Go 2 and my Go are plugged in. They're both on high power settings. I can't think of any other reason why my Go 2 would not be performing as well as it should be. Oh, we've run into an issue here. So the drive on the Go 2, while it does have a faster read, it has a quite substantially slower write speed compared to the Surface Go original with the 128 NVMe drive. So the peak speed isn't everything.
I mean, the sequential the sequential write speed isn't everything, but it definitely is a critical factor when you're installing applications or moving lots of small files around. I'm interested to see how the random read write 4K is, because I'd accept lower write speed for more read speed and better 4K performance. And ooh, it is better. So the 4K performance should be snappier on this NVMe drive. So write speed not quite as good sequentially, but overall it should be more responsive. 376 already really fast. So if they had to make trade-offs in the controller to make it faster read and have higher 4K, I'm okay with that. And we'll just let one of those last numbers come in, and then we will, if you have any questions or want me to check anything out, drop your question right now. Otherwise, I'll kind of do a recap on what we've found here tonight, and then we'll close it out because this has been almost 2 hours now. Okay, yeah, so quicker on 94 there. So
Okay, Surface Go 2. Is it worth it? If you need CPU compute, I would say yes, definitely. It definitely is much snappier, and it's snappier in places where you're really going to notice it. For example, when we were scrolling around on that YouTube page, you can see that this thing just responds and responds and responds much better than the original Go. Even though apparently my Surface Go 2 is nerfed, by the way. But it's still snappier. It installs applications quicker, nicer screen, studio mics, better camera. A lot of these creature comforts on this are making it better. So if I had to choose, okay, let's do some scenarios. So say you go to Best Buy and you find an open box Surface Go and it's for $200. I think that's a no-brainer. Pick that thing up. If you are going to try to use the Surface Go as like your primary device and you run a little more heavy-duty applications, you are maybe, or a heavy web user even, some websites are super heavy these days and they need to be snappy because you're using your hand a lot of times. So if you need snappy performance for things like that, it's worth it to get the Go 2 if it's your primary device. But I find that the majority of people using a Go device are kind of just using it as a secondary device, maybe even like an e-reader. They're using it for taking notes. And the original Go was fine for that. And that was one of the things that, people said it underperformed, but depends what you want to use it for. Because if you're using the pen, it's not an issue. I should note, and I won't hop back on there to test it, but testing the pen between both of the screens, the pressure sensitivity was better on the Surface Go 2. Just slightly, but I was able to create more refined lines much easier on this screen than I was on the original Go. So if you need a better camera, if you need a better microphone, Go 2 is definitely where it's at, but the original Go, you can probably find it at a discount, and it was actually a pretty attractive price. Remember, you can get the Go 2. You don't have to get the 629 version to get the M3 processor. You can go the business route and get it for $499, but you give up the NVMe drive and the extra 4 gigabytes of RAM. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys, if you made it this far. Hopefully it was useful. I think I learned a lot about live streaming formats and benchmarking in a live streaming format. If anyone knows what's going on with my Pro 2, it is underperforming. versus what I'm seeing Daniel Rubino. And thank you, Josher. Check out his channel, guys. He ran some benchmarks to compare against mine, and his is performing half what mine's performing at a 20% deficit to Windows Central numbers, and his is performing like at a 10% deficit. So something's going on. Maybe that will be fixed in a firmware update. If I get any update on what's going on. Oh, so Josher's going to run Heaven for us. In Heaven, 720p, and turn off anti-aliasing. Windowed mode. And go ahead and message me on YouTube with those results, and maybe I'll make a recap video on what's going on. I may reach out to Microsoft and say, hey, what's going on here? Because my Surface Go is not performing up to par with the review. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys. If you have suggestions, please subscribe to the channel and drop some news in there. I'm really interested in kind of building a community around Surface devices, and I think it's a really fun thing to be doing. I also have a website called surfaceusers.com. If you're interested, there's more and more on there as I continue to make more videos. But I have a ton of Surface content on my channel. Be sure to check it out if you're interested in Surface Pro 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. I've done them all. But also, coming up, the Surface Book 3 is going to be here. And I'm really excited for it because I find the 13.5-inch Surface Book 3 is like, ooh, it's like the best form factor. You can still rip off that tablet. It's small enough that it's really manageable. 15 inches is a bit of a stretch. But I've done a lot of testing with a GTX 1650, and I find I can extract a lot more performance out of a 1650 versus it at stock by tweaking some of the settings. You can see my videos on that. And I'm really excited to get that in and see if I can make it really perform a lot closer to the 1060 of the 15-inch of the last generation. I think I can make it almost as good as that 1060 while still being in the 13-inch form factor, which I'm really excited about. So anyways, thanks for sticking around this long. Hopefully this has been useful. I'm really kind of disappointed that the Go 2, my particular unit, appeared to have a performance deficit. So I guess you have to take pretty much a lot of this with a grain of salt, but hopefully there's good information. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next video.